Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of The Blacklist. A fantastic 2-hour season finale. Obviously, just so much to go over. First of all, just basically Kaplan pushing Reddington to the brink, literally draining away his money. He has this whole arms deal situation going in the beginning episode, which falls through because all his money's run dry. The supplier didn't get the money, so they didn't get the weapons. Turns into a shootout, just screws him over there. Every ally he once had, people are starting to pull away from because everyone's hearing about this Kaplan situation. And it's the fact of the matter is, Reddington, you're too hot right now. The fact is, Kaplan's on the verge of bringing you down. The cops are closing in on you. The authorities in general. It's no, gotta distance ourselves away from you. Even people who've trusted him for a long time, they know, everyone is turning away from him. So it is a very, very desperate time for Reddington. Because obviously in the first episode, we have Kate getting a guy named Mario, played by Aldous Hodge, which in this episode, he's playing a thief, which obviously, I brought it up. I feel like he popped up in something else recently, and I just don't remember what. I feel like not recently, but it's something podcast-wise I feel like I brought. Nah, nevertheless, maybe not, I don't remember. Nevertheless, he played Hardison on Leverage. Obviously, Mario is very different from Hardison. Obviously, Mario is a very, goes after valuable stuff and is not afraid to kill people. That's not Hardison at all. So it's really interesting seeing him play a thief, but two very different thieves and stuff like that. There was even a stupid moment during the episode. I mean, not for the show, but a stupid moment for me where he said that, "Oh, I've got the leverage." I was like, do you think? I don't think they wrote that line specifically for that. Part of me hopes that somebody was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna write that line." It's yeah, could you run a show called Leverage? I know it's stupid and nerdy of me, but that's just where my mind went. But it turns out that, because basically this is all about Kate getting the info to Julian, basically the document proving that this whole task force and immunity deal with Reddington, because Julian knows it's for a fact. Obviously, he even confronts Wrestler. It's yeah, I was there. I saw you and Keen with Reddington. It's oh, you got this whole deal going on. He's dude, I was right. Wrestler tries to explain himself. He's dude, I was right where you were at the beginning. I was so against it. But the fact of the matter is, we do good. He's really? All these dead bodies would say otherwise. You went on and let him do whatever he wants. And that becomes obviously, that's the big issue throughout the episode, too. It's everyone's got their opinions about where they stand in this whole situation. Samar looks at it as it's a necessary evil. Same thing for Cooper. It's yeah, we all knew there were going to be some dirty sides to us about keeping Reddington in power and letting him run his business and stuff like that. We knew there was a downside to it. But the fact of the matter is, we took some very powerful and bad people out. At the same time, it's well, that doesn't justify all the people Reddington's killed. Once again, even if they're bad guys or not, for one, you're also making Reddington get more and more powerful too. So, it's a very slippery slope. For some people, it's black and white, but it's that shade of gray has never been grayer in this particular situation. It's hard to say where you fall on that particular line. You had Wrestler being yeah, I agree with it and everything, but it's still, because of us, Reddington's going off and killing a lot of people, which even Liz kind of puts her input to it. It's actually, you're both right. The fact is, Reddington's done some bad stuff and killings on our part, which makes me sick, but at the same time, it's we do good work. We've taken down a lot of people. And even Cooper throws well, then what about the debt collector? He literally had you kidnapped and everything. It's that's irreprehensible, but still, the fact of the matter is, we either stand together or we fall, because Reddington falling means they're going to go down too, because they need to take Julian out of the equation, but they need Reddington to do that. But Reddington can't help them if he's dealing with the whole Kaplan situation. So basically, there was a deal that went on between Mario. He's all right, I'm going to give you Kaplan's location, where the meetup is and everything. And for that, you have to give me something to help him kind of start. Because from the very beginning, he's I'm going into this deal knowing there's no good ending for me. He's if I betray Kaplan, I'm as good as dead. If I don't tell you what you want, I'm as good as dead. So it's I'm screwed in him, because he also knows that the FBI couldn't turn him over, because it's yeah, I'd use the evidence I got and I tell them all about your agreement. So you're screwed in that department. So you can't arrest me. And it's Red ends up visiting Liz's grandfather, which I was right, he hasn't told him about Liz being alive, but he kind of explains why. It's the last thing he wanted is to bring Kaplan to, because Dom is his last secret. That's the big secret that, Liz doesn't know about, and I guess it's something that he, as we can see, that's something even he's never even told Kaplan about, which is like that. I mean, and I like the way Liz has put it in perspective too. Like I think I've been constantly using the wrong number. I kept saying 20 years all the entire time. It's like, no, 30 years is how long him and Kaplan have known each other. But nevertheless, it's like, it took her 5 months to dismantle what she helped Reddington build over 30 years. It's like, that's pretty impressive. But considering like she's very dedicated to this whole mission and everything, it's understandable why she would go to such lengths. But that's a kept secret that, because I guess at the end of the day, what would Kaplan have done if she had found out about that? Because, because obviously Kaplan very much cared about Katerina, but that's Katerina's dad. So what would she have really done? Would she have exposed it? Because the fact of the matter is, Reddington kind of went into this knowing like, hey, things might not work out for me. This might be a situation I might not come back. He's even telling Dom like, if I don't come back, find Liz, Because the question is, why does he still granted, because I guess he doesn't want her to know all his dirty little secrets. I mean, obviously the end of the episode kind of shows the end of the whole thing kind of shows like, oh, how many dirty secrets Reddington really has. Because the fact of the matter is, Reddington's always made it abundantly clear, I've never lied to you, which is like, now we kind of get the sense that like he does. Granted, he's kept stuff from her. Like, there's no question about that. But he's never really, there's one lie that ended up coming out. Obviously, I'll go ahead and say it, like Reddington being her dad. That's all that was brought up back in season 1. Even, you even had Liz bringing up the fact that she even brought it up to Cooper, because Cooper ran Reddington's DNA, because he ended up getting it from a blood-soaked shirt from back in the day. Actually, Cooper and Reddington actually worked together back in the day, which is why he specifically chose to give himself over to Cooper in this whole task force. Is why he chose him specifically, was because he had this past relation with Cooper, which Cooper's never really brought up before. I guess it's a little awkward to bring up that's part of it, because at the very least, it's like with everything going down, Julian hitting them as hard as they are, like everything's coming down on them. It's like, hey, I need to make sure that I want to at the very least do something for Liz, and that's to tell her the truth about why Reddington chose you. That's the answer she's been looking for this entire time, why he decided to come in her life. Which obviously Reddington's giving examples like, I've come into your life because I want to protect you. From Tom, from Berlin, from even Alexander Kurt, like anyone that might be coming after you, I tried to protect you. It's like, maybe in the end, Kate was right that you need to be protected from me. But I'm kind of all over the place. I do apologize. Basically, it was kind of a safety net for Reddington. He's like, because the box he got from Dom's place, it's like, it's like a last resort. It's like, this is kind of end all be all type of thing. And I was like, what is it? Some documents or something? It's like, no, it's a key. It's a key to a very specially sustained island. There's a whole bunch of things, like everything is set up this to be the perfect escape, the end all be all. Like, you're on the run. No one will find you. No one will dare cross you, because it's a place that is heavily guarded, that once you have this key and unlock a door, it's like everyone will serve you. Obviously, that was originally given to Mario, but then like Reddington's like, yeah, actually it's keys for someone else, and kills Mario. It was meant to be a peacekeeping between him and Kate. It's like, this is it. You take this, you get to live the rest of your life. The fact of the matter is, so he's like, because he ends up bringing up some interesting things. He's like, Liz will be who she is even without us. Maybe it's connected to being basically her past and everything. Maybe it kind of runs in her DNA and everything. But the fact of the matter is, Liz would be who she is, tapping into criminal minds and everything. Even if I wasn't there, even if I kept my distance, she would still be who she is. She is no longer Masha. Maybe there's some parts of her that are, but she is Liz. She's Elizabeth King. She's no longer Masha. Which, that's still not enough for Kate, because she's like, no, because it's still all for the means of protecting Liz. And, she ends up joining up with Julian, because she tried to get the documents, but obviously Red ended up getting them first. So, you even had also like, Aram being subpoenaed to testify, and he's like, no, I'm gonna plead the Fifth Amendment, which this is something I didn't even know. Apparently you can't plead the Fifth Amendment once you've got immunity, because it's like your immunity kind of trumps the Fifth Amendment, because it's like, oh, you can't plead to anything that you might have been guilty of, but part of an immunity agreement is you have to talk. Fifth Agreement kind of protects you from incriminating yourself and stuff like that. So obviously he wanted to push that, but he couldn't because of the immunity agreement. It's like, no, I don't even want it, so you can take it back and everything. And I was like, but they won't let him, so he's forced to testify, which he's like, no, you're not going to crucify my friends and everything like that. He's like, the work we do, we're doing good. Like, yeah, but the fact of the matter is, yeah, Mr. Reddington's done some bad stuff, but the fact of the matter is there's greater evil out there. All of this is about trying to get Kaplan's testimony about this. But sadly, that doesn't work because basically Red tracks down a guy named Henry Prescott. He's kind of like a fixer. He's like, you got problems? He makes them disappear. Well, they end up tracking him down, and basically one of the problems he made disappear is like, okay, there's a package from like 2015. It's like, what could it be? It's like, what is it? Is it like a package? What is it? And they look in a drum barrel. It's Raven Wright's body. That's what the smoking gun they need, because it's like they can get the Hitchens, and Hitchens can make this whole case disappear, which she does, but she makes them promise. It's like, okay, this is a one and done thing, which I love that moment where it's like, Wrestler is kind of smiling, and she's like, the smile on her face disappears when they bring up the whole situation. It's like, yeah, we got this bullet and everything. So it's like, oh yeah, Wrestler Donald's just mad because of this whole situation. It leaves him feeling very uneasy, and it's like, okay, I'll help you with this situation, but you can never bring up Raven Wright and me in the same sense again. And Reden's like, oh sure. It's like, no, I want to hear it from Wrestler, and he's like, fine, sure. And so she drops the entire case. So I even like when him and Julian met up, and Reddington's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, when was the last time I got away from you? I remember, oh, it was so close. It was so good. See you around, Julian. He's like, even at one point, oh, were you going to kill me? He's like, I know I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to take your phone. Yeah, almost like, you're silly. But obviously this put Kate in a very peculiar situation, because now that the case has been dropped, her immunity is going too, because her immunity would have kept her out of jail, which meant she could have been in a position that once Reddington was taken out of the picture, no matter what the fallout was for the rest of everybody else, she could be there to continue what she promised to Katarina, and that was to protect Liz. But then again, it's like that gets complicated now, so she her hand is forced into like, Liz, I'm gonna tell you the truth, the one thing that Reddington's been hiding from you this entire time. Now obviously, Kate ends up killing herself because Reddington wasn't going to shoot her, because he was like, no, I'm not going to shoot you. I shouldn't have shot you before, but the fact of the matter is, she's like, I'm not going to go to jail. This is the only way I can protect, the only way I can protect Liz is for the truth to come out. And it's a truth that Reddington's like, you didn't, Kate. What have you done? And she's like, I dug up something from their past that he's kept so deeply hidden that he doesn't want Liz to know. And she jumps off a bridge to kill herself to force things to happen, because her contingency plans only work if she's dead, which is why Reddington was like, I'm not going to kill you. The fact of the matter is, those need to stay buried. But even then, it's like, I wouldn't want to kill you. He, from the very beginning, didn't want this to happen, because he regretted like things playing out the way they did. But sadly, Kaplan is dead now. And so Liz ends up finding out the truth from the DNA test, that he is her dad. And she's like, why have you kept this a secret from me all this time? It's like, you could have told me. It wasn't because you were all these tests about getting inside of a criminal's head. Was this all a test to see if I was like you? And I think ultimately that's what Red was afraid of. He doesn't want Liz to be like him. He wants Liz to be better. It's like, you were raised by Sam, who was a much better man than me. Like, that's why, I kept this from me, because I didn't want he has fun hanging around Liz and everything, but it's like, but that's what the thing is. He said from the very beginning he would never lie to Liz, and it always seemed like he never did. But they're just like, no, because he has been lying to her from the very beginning. She brought it up before. She's like, are you my father? And he was like, no. Back in season 1, she asked him that question, which she had the DNA results, but because it ended up being like a fingerprint from Reddington's glass or something from a particular mission back in season 1, but she was too afraid to look at it. But now she was ready to look at it to find out the truth. And so this plays a part in why he's been in her life and everything. And she's like, the fact of the matter is, it's a combination of things. She hates him and resents him for everything that's happened, the fact that he's kept secrets, just everything that's happened since he's come into her life. But at the same time, she's like, that's what family, those are kind of part of just being a family. And what that means is like, just that's what we are, family. And she hugs him, which Dembe later on is talking to Reddington. It's like, so that's what she thought Kate's big secret was about. And it's like, nope. What is it? Like, it's gone. And it's like, Dembe's like, Liz might not be ready. I don't think Liz is ready to find out what you did to Katarina. It's like, wait, what's that about? Then it seems like one of the people that Kaplan was talking to talked to Tom, got in contact with Tom, and Tom got the suitcase. And in that suitcase is a body. And it's like, okay, and that's the end of the season. So interesting that Tom is involved in this and everything. He's all about protecting Liz and the truth's coming out. So I guess Kaplan kind of convinced him. It's like, oh, this is all for the greater good for Liz. This will kind of protect her. This will ensure that Reddington, that line, I don't know, maybe that this will keep Reddington away. Also makes you wonder, like, at what point in time does this take place in the Blacklist redemption? Because obviously, like, he's all dealing with that whole situation, but on top of that, this happening, like, this is probably like what we might see, like I said, I don't know if the Blacklist redemption is coming back. I'm hoping it is, but if so, we'll probably find out like at some point during that season, it'll probably correlate to this moment and be like, oh, Kaplan gave him the message and he went off to handle it. So, what this means, I don't know. What did he do to Katerina? Did he kill her? Because the fact of the matter is, I don't think it would be that, because if it was a case, like, he would never... No, like Mr. Kaplan, Kate would have never forgiven him if he had killed Katerina. And it's something that she knew about too. That's why she knew where the suitcase was. So it's like, what is this about? And what does it have to do with Katerina? Is Katerina actually dead? Or is she actually like in a prison somewhere that, Reddington hasn't said anything about? Or do we end up finding out the truth is, no, like, I don't know. Because it can't be something like Katerina didn't actually love Liz or something and tried to kill her or something crazy like that, because it's like, I feel like Kaplan would have, I don't know. That's the thing. You don't know with this situation, like what that means going forward, because it does seem like, I don't know. It seems like this might be the end all be all for their relationship if she finds out the truth, which for Reddington, it's out of his hands. Like the gears have already started turning. So Liz will find out whatever truth it is that he is hiding from her. I mean, the ultimate question is, what is it? What is this body about? And also, we ended up finding out, well, other storyline elements, like, let's not forget Aram's side of the story. The whole reason why he had to be subpoenaed in the first place is because of Janet. Samar was going to tell him and everything, which Janet was like, yeah, this was all about, they were going to revoke my immunity deal, but now they're promising to expunge my record if I testify and stuff like that. So I kind of brought Aram into this and everything. She's the one that kind of put his name out there in the first place, put him in this very awkward position where it's like he would never, like he ended up going to jail because he ended up getting locked up because he refused to testify against everyone. And she ends up asking Samar, like, if you were in my position, can you honestly say that you wouldn't do it? She's like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. Especially if it meant putting Aram in this particular situation. Like, because it's a situation that Janet should know what kind of person Aram is. The fact is, he would not betray the task force because they are his friends. I love when he was testifying. He was like, I mean, my alleged friends that are connected to an alleged task force that may or may not exist, But the reason why Samar didn't tell him immediately was because, like, the only thing keeping him strong was like, yeah, I know you don't like hearing this, but Janet, she makes me happy, and she's the reason why, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have made it through this. Which Janet inadvertently ended up opening her mouth about the whole situation. Because, as we saw before, she was fine with not telling Haram from the very beginning. It's like, oh, the reason why I didn't tell him about it was because, obviously, I was forced not to say anything about the investigation. Was like, Haram broke that to tell them, so that shows you just how important they are to him, but how not important he is to you. Like, you should have been willing to be like, hey, but the fact of the matter is, it's a situation where it's like she cared more about herself than him, which is why he ends up kissing like Samar later on in the episode, because it's like she put her own like feelings aside, and it's like she could have easily destroyed Janet, be like, oh, Janet sold you out and everything, just kind of give her the middle finger. But it's like, no, he saw how much it meant for Haram, how much it gave him hope and kept him going while he was locked up and everything. So, but it's like, finally, gosh, like now, and you're also doing it out in the open in front of everyone, so there's no going back now, Haram. Like, don't punk out again, please don't. It's like, I want you and Samar to be together. You need to be together. You so like totally have had a thing for each other for a long time. You just haven't taken that step forward. Now you have. Do not take it back. So do not screw this up, Haram. Just please don't. You make such a cute couple. But also at the same time, we have the wrestler situation, which I didn't see coming. Like, I figured it was going to be some play like, oh, wrestler's got something up his sleeve to be like, oh, I'm going to use this against, it's like, oh, yeah, I made this promise and everything. I lied, blah, blah, blah. We got this, that, whatever the case may be. Because now the Reverend Wright situation can never come back up because the bullet's been removed. It's been taken care of and everything. So there's no option of trying to use this against Hutchins again. And, she's like, yeah, you're doing whatever I tell you to from now on. And he's like, whatever. She's like, kind of reinstates him. And he's like, get off me. And he ends up pushing her. She falls, hits her head, and dies. So now wrestler ends up calling in Henry to help him. Granted, it's under a different name because Henry knows him from a different name, because the first time he met with Reddington, it's like Reddington called him a different name. It makes you wonder, did Donald call him, or did Donald call Reddington and Reddington called Henry? I mean, either way, that sucks. Now, Wrestler is a very, the Boy Scout, so it's like this is going to be weighing heavy on his conscience. Yes, he doesn't like her. Yes, she's a murderer and everything, but the fact of the matter is he still kills someone. And that it's an accident, but still, like, especially after just dealing with everything they've just dealt with, this has just opened up another can of worms. And considering her high position and everything, this won't go likely. I was so sure, like I said, the twist was going to be like, oh yeah, you don't know, we have more evidence how me and Reddington Live were taking you down, which probably, that whole Cabal situation is like still kind of like, I mean, obviously they've turned their eye away from Reddington and Liz, but I guess that's still kind of a thing, but they're kind of off doing their own thing. They're not messing with Liz. I mean, the fact that she's part of the Cabal and everything, so now that she's going, there's a vacuum there filling her position and everything, so does that mean someone else is going to step up to do that, or there's going to be a whole investigation and everything? Just, it's not going to be a pretty situation. Like I said, I don't know if this is coming back for another season. I hope on everything it is, because especially with the mystery just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Obviously, we know that now Reddington and Liz are father and daughter, but there's still so much we don't know about. What is secret is so bad that Reddington and Kaplan hid it, and the fact that she's so willing to kill herself to get it to come out. Like, what is it, and what does it have to do with Katarina? I don't think that's her body, because, like I said, there's no way that could be her body, because Kaplan wouldn't have done it. She never would have worked with Reddington, even if it was for, like, Liz's sake, because she always wanted to protect not just Liz, but also, Katarina, because Katarina was someone she cared about, so. And also, who's that person that Liz remembered shooting? Because we still don't know that other side of the story, because there was more memories. That guy who messed with memories, he ended up bringing up the fact that, oh, I took a lot more for you, you just don't remember. It's like, I think it was like, yeah, there was like a more recent time, like 2 years ago. Like, he could have been lying, but obviously I don't think he was. So many questions, some answers, but just so many questions. And obviously, we also know this isn't the end of Julian either. Julian knows this whole thing's in existence. He doesn't have the proof for it anymore, but he's not the type to back down. So he's going to be a problem going forward big time. He might even be kind of considered probably one of the main antagonists of the next season. Side note, still didn't get the answer to what I've also been wondering too. What the hell did Reddington say to Kirk to get him to leave? He whispered something in his ear and he left. What is it about? I've kept theorizing, like, oh, maybe Katarina's still alive somewhere that basically no one knows about, not even Kaplan. So maybe this secret is like, maybe it's something that Kaplan thought meant one thing when in actuality it means something else. Maybe this is like, obviously, but it feels like it has to be something that Kaplan had to fully know too, for her to be willing to be like, hey, here's a secret. But the thing with Reddington is he has contingencies upon contingencies, so it's kind of like, maybe, just maybe, he lied to her and made her think it meant something else when in fact it means something. I still don't think Katarina is dead. And maybe the fact of the matter is, maybe Kaplan knows that too, and maybe, like I said, maybe this, I don't know, I keep going in circles because it's so frustrating, because I need to know now. I love mysteries, at the same time I hate them, because I start racking my brain about what could it be this, could it be that, and it's just like I never know. Especially with this show, it's like they're going to tease it. They're going to make you wait a long time till you get that information. So, and also about Reddington too. What does this mean going forward for Reddington now that Kaplan's going? Does that mean his business gets to come back too? Does all the people kind of turn their back? I was like, oh, Reddington, yeah, you're no longer in the spotlight and everything. Cool, we can work together. Like I said, aside from the Julian situation, I mean, granted, Julian's kind of handling stuff on his own, but still, like I said, he's definitely going to be a thorn in their side they're going to have to watch out for. But I'm wondering, now that his money situation is kind of flowing in. I mean, sadly, he ended up, obviously, I kind of didn't talk about it, but at the beginning of the first part, he ended up finding out that his other accountant, Abe, his money dude, is like, yeah, you've been working with Kaplan this entire time. That's how she's been able to get access to a lot of my accounts, because it's like, no, we removed her name from the account, so how is she still draining my money like crazy? Oh, yeah, it's because you've been working with me. I've known you for like 11 years. I know all this stuff about you, and you're going to do this to me. And also, like, going forward, what does this mean for Liz's grandfather, not great-grandfather, like, now that he knows that Liz is still alive, because Reddington ended up saying something interesting to him. He's like, I'm sorry, and I was like, what about what? He's like, for everything. I know I'm not the person you wanted me to be, and I'm sorry for that. So it's like, how far does this go back? Because the fact of the matter is, considering the whole, like, does he know a lot of stuff too? Like, is there stuff that Reddington's kept from him? I mean, except for, like, he knew about the whole Masha situation, but he didn't know about her having Agnes. But then again, it's like, how much does he know that Reddington's keeping secret from her? Like I said, because even, like I said, even this itself is a secret that even Kaplan didn't know about. So, who's to say how much Reddington has that he might have even hidden from someone as close to him as Kaplan? I mean, it makes you wonder, like, because Dembe knows about certain things, because that's why when he was there, he was like, you sure you want to do this? Because it's like, your job is to protect Kate. I mean, your job is to protect Liz, and my job is to protect you, but I won't be able to do it if it comes down to this. I mean, because that key thing was probably always his escape plan. I mean, that's still on the board now because Kaplan didn't take it. So it's still a possibility for him, but he might not be willing to take it now that, you know, Liz knows everything. And also, no, I'm skipping over, but what does that mean going forward for Liz, knowing that, you know, because, you know, she brought up the conversation of, like, thinking like a criminal comes natural to her. And it's like, is that what you're always afraid of? And it's like, well, you should be. And it's something that makes me afraid because it does come naturally to me to think like a criminal. Like, you know, am I predisposed to it? I mean, because let's face it, like, her mom was a spy. Her dad was kind of a spy / one of the most wanted criminals out there. And it's like, it rubs off on her. Because let's not forget, there have been moments throughout the series, Liz actually has fun hanging around Reddington. Like, you see it, and I don't know if it's something she's ever quite noticed, but sometimes she actually has her problems with Reddington from time to time, but even then she moves past it because, like, it's still I mean, you could argue that's the reason why she's so willing to excuse a lot of the stuff he says. Not excuse, but at the very least kind of look over it. You know what I'm trying to say. So, like I said, I hope this gets renewed for another season because it's just fantastic ending. Not what I wanted. I didn't want Kaplan to die, but I felt like it was most likely going to happen. Because at the end of the day, it was going to be her or Reddington, and it was like, this was her choice. This is just how things played out, sadly. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Kind of ending that off on a super bummer. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to do that, but it is what it is, I guess. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.